what we tell kids that they need to do, number one, and I have parents ask me all the time, what do I need to do? Or the kids will ask, what do I need to do? And they'll ask all the way down as young as 8th grade. What do I need to do in order to get ready for college? And the first thing we tell them is you need to do school. And to be enrolled in a college prep program at a high school, and then to actually do your work and do what the teachers ask you to do and study for the tests and figure out what works for you, how to study and all those things. Those are the things that you need to do first. What we do is we really hit them hard as sophomores, and we get them on the computer. We have a Naviance here at our school, and we get them on the computers. We have them doing the personality test, which eventually will link them to careers that match their personalities, which will link them to majors that match those careers, and then universities in the country that have that as a major. Then we have them take a career interest test, and the career interest test will link them to careers that match their interests. Then that will link them to majors that will get you to those careers, and then to universities that have those majors. And we really hit them hard as sophomores and tell them, you have a year and a half or 2 years from right now to look at that list of schools that comes up and figure out which ones are going to fit for you and which ones aren't going to fit for you. And when we talk about right fit, we talk about things like how far away from home is it? What is it in, are you interested in being in a school that has 300 kids in a lecture hall and a little teacher down at the bottom there? Or is it going to be, we're a smaller private school, so a lot of times what the students really know and really feel comfortable with is the small class sizes, and they don't understand that if they go off to a large state university that they're not going to get that. They're not going to get that attention that they're used to here. And so we really have them thinking about that stuff for 2 years beforehand, and we have them, we meet annually with them to talk about that stuff. We will meet with them whenever they want to come in. We force them to come in annually. And we also have an advisory period where it's kind of like a homeroom, but their homeroom teacher, their advisory teacher, is on their Naviance account and is in contact with the schools, with the student's counselor also, and so is making sure that the student has done the personality test and has a little college list, at least things that he or she is thinking about, and then we're honestly just open to any questions that come along as the process happens. And as a junior, we really just tell them to continue the research, go and visit schools. There's something about a school that you can't explain it when you talk to the students, but the parents, any parent who's been to college, any adult who's been to college, you always see them nodding and saying, oh yes, when I talk about this. But there's something about visiting a school you just can't explain, but when you're standing on that campus, you can tell whether you belong there or not. And that's one of the biggest things that we really push is, in the summer between sophomore and junior year, and junior year during vacations and things like that, try to go out and see schools, visit campuses, talk to admissions counselors. And then the most important is, well, not the most important, but one of the things you need to do as a junior also is take the SAT and the ACT. We recommend that students take both, mostly because they're different tests. A lot of students are going to do considerably better on one than they do on another, and so universities then will say, we'll take the higher score between the two. Schools that are looking for an ACT, for instance, if you don't take the ACT, they'll take your SAT score and they'll turn it into an ACT score. Well, you may have done better on the ACT if you just took the test than you did on the conversion rate. And so we really push for that in March, April, May, June of their junior year. And that also helps the summer between junior and senior year, when they're really seriously looking at colleges and they're seriously talking to admissions counselors and they're seriously deciding which schools are realistic and which ones aren't. They have test scores to go by. They have their GPAs. They have their test scores to go by. They can look at the university's averages and see what's realistic and what isn't for them.
Dan, what would you say is different? What would surprise parents who went to college 20 or 30 years ago about the college environment today?
About the college environment, like actually...
Like getting in or preparing for it?
Yeah, what would shock them is the percent acceptance rates are considerably lower than they were even 20 years ago when I was trying to get into school. And the averages, for instance, at my university, based on my numbers when I was in high school, if I tried to apply to my university that I went to now, I would be slightly below average student that they accept. So the competition is higher. Yes, yeah. It is much higher because there are more applicants. There's considerably more. It is important to be enrolled in a college prep program at whatever high school you're in. That will at least force the guidance counselor to have a sit down at least once a year with the student to make sure that the student is taking the proper classes to prepare them for minimum college admission. So things like having the 4 English and at least the 3 sciences and 2 of them are lab, and having the discussions about foreign language classes. Should I take 2 foreign language classes or should I take 3 foreign language classes? Should I take 3 math or should I take 4 math? Should I go ahead and take that 4th science as well? Those are all things, at least if they're enrolled in that program, those are conversations that will happen. But it is, and I'll tell you what, when my child is old enough, I'm not going to be my child's counselor. I'm going to be calling my child's counselor all the time and making sure that that I understand, so that I can make sure that my child understands, and I can at least talk to my child and make sure that my child and the counselor are on the same page and all that stuff. So it is really important to be assertive. Yeah. I can tell you one thing. I talk to a lot of college coaches, and college coaches sit down in my office and they want to talk about this student or that student because they're interested in having them, interested in recruiting them for football to play football at their university. And the very first thing every single coach asks for is a transcript. They want to see the test scores, they want to see the GPA, they want to know that the students that they're interested in are going to be students and that they're going to be able to handle being students. In fact, I had a coach just last week talking to one of our students who may benefit from the fact that a student that they recruited a year ago is currently flunking out of college, and so is opening up a scholarship position for one of our student athletes here.
Grades matter.
Grades, it's huge
for the athletes.
Yeah, I had a student a couple of years ago who went on to play for the Naval Academy, and he had a coach here one day, and he was running around the school trying to get extra letters of recommendation from teachers because the coach was looking at his grades and saying, "Hey, we want you, but these grades aren't good enough. I need to know that you can handle this." And, and he was running around like a madman all day long trying to see if teachers would write recommendations for him right that minute.
Wow.
So it's extremely important. Yes. Trying to encourage. There's a lot of electronic, communication going on nowadays. We try to encourage our students to approach their teachers and approach their counselors and approach their principals or whatever personally to ask for letters of recommendation. And when they do that, they should have a letter that says, "Dear Mr. So-and-so or Dear Mrs. So-and-so, can you please write me a letter of recommendation for this university?" And in that letter it should say, the recommendation is an academic recommendation, or it's a recommendation about my involvement in student council or something like that, so that the teacher will know. And then it should also say in there, kind of give them a time frame. We need to mail this recommendation to the school by this date. And then they should give it to the school, to the teacher, with an addressed envelope with a stamp on it and everything, so that the teacher can write the recommendation, put it in the envelope, and throw it in the mail.